as I said, the presentations, there's an awful lot of information. They're just giving you little highlights to spark your interest and your attention just in their presentations there. George and Carmel will be here throughout the day. But perhaps you're organising an event, a small event, maybe it's a large festival, maybe you're from a tourism entity within a council. Any questions that have come to mind just initially? Hands up, and we have a couple of roving microphones in the audience. Now, I know you're not quiet because you're all in the tourism industry and you're all chatters and talkers. And let's face it, that's why people come to Northern Ireland, because of the crack in the chat. So hands up, anyone who's got a question for Carmel in regard to what's available from Tourism Northern Ireland, the pool of resources and the experience that they have that you want to feed into, or, as George was saying, capitalise on those tour operators, those big buyers of events. Any questions from the floor? Hands up. I'll start it, and I'm only going to ask a couple of questions because I'm not an expert in your industry. Carmel, you do have an awful lot of resources. You've lots of, the content pool, all of that photography that's so professionally produced and now available for everyone working in the tourism industry. How do you think that smaller events in particular, and perhaps events outside of the larger cities and towns, can benefit from the resources that you have in marketing?
So first of all, what I would say is, I suppose I understand how difficult it is for smaller events to be able to create that content themselves. What I would say to you is that's potentially where you can cleverly use influencers to create some of that content. So not only are you benefiting from the reach and the scale and the visibility of the influencer's profile, but you can also, and this is what we have been doing recently, is actually you can be using those influencers and just making sure that the right buyouts and the right agreements are in place. You can actually be using those influencers to create that content for you, which you can use year on year. Also, I would say that for those events, maybe outside of the bigger cities, working on a smaller scale, what I would say is, use the content pool in terms of some of the other assets that are there, to I suppose, promote your region or to promote your area. Use some of the assets that are there to tie in that accommodation message, to tie in some of the attractions and experiences. The local councils all also use content pool, and they also, whenever they create new content, they also upload it onto that content pool. So if there's anything that's available in your area, the likelihood is that it will be available from there. So I suppose just those two things, that if budget is limited, and I would say maybe potentially use some local influencers to help you to create that content. Also look at, and again, as part of the Creator Club that we are using, we have had different students in as well creating content for us from particular universities, and again, they are absolutely dying and really up for getting the experience. So that potentially is another route. And then the last thing is, as I say, just try and think about the wider tourism offering in the area or the region in which you're operating in, and bring that all together in a compelling proposition or itinerary.
Just tell me again about the clusters, the geographical clusters, but are there clusters as well in regard to maybe literary festivals, or maybe a combination of different products in one region? How are they working, and how do you think people can benefit from that partnership?
Yeah, I suppose we know from our segments, a bit like I talked to you about earlier, there are particular themes that resonate with some of those segments. So for example, our open-minded explorers and our natural quality seekers, they are looking for literature, they are looking for music. So there is an opportunity way to bundle or I suppose collaborate with other event providers, not only in your area but within wider Northern Ireland, I suppose to create a wider clustering and I suppose a compelling offering for the visitor, especially if you're trying to target visitors from ROI. You could be giving them multiple reasons to come up and spend 1 or 2 nights in Northern Ireland and travelling around to visit a number of events whenever they're here. So yes, there's definitely merit in doing that. Music is also a theme that we see coming through more and more, and with Fleadh Cheoil na HÉireann in August. Again, there's an opportunity there that whenever we have visitors up to experience the Fleadh, that we hope that there will be some downtime then, and we need to all, I suppose, work together to encourage them to get out into some of the other regions to explore what's on offer from a music and culture perspective.
George, the Fleadh Cheoil will bring thousands, if not tens of thousands of people to Belfast. In regard to tour operators, what are they not interested in? And is there a part of Northern Ireland that has been left untouched by their business?
So an event like Fleadh Cheoil, when I went back in my presentation about something distinctly local, something that they won't be able to experience back at home. So that'll be an attraction for a tour operator that they'll want to. It'll help them sell their Northern Irish itineraries, that there's a fantastic event taking place. There'll be lots for them to do and see while they're here. The one thing to be aware of, though, is that you're unlikely to get a tour operator to package and sell that unless there is a margin in it for them. So it's an event which is free to attend. That might not necessarily be commercially appealing to them. What they'll be looking for is then the broader appeal to say, look, you're in Northern Ireland over August. We really recommend this week because there's a really unique experience that you can take part in Belfast, an authentic experience where you can meet with the locals. It's not a ticketed event. So really look at a way to sell it as a unique experience as part of an itinerary. If you're looking to something that was more a ticketed option, so I know Ulster Rugby playing in a knockout match, that might be something slightly different where that'll anchor the itinerary, where the tour operator will be bringing people into the specific experience and then build out the itinerary afterwards. So there's no wrong or right way when dealing with tour operators. If you don't necessarily have a packaged experience that they can sell, use that as a compelling reason to visit the destination, and that can help enhance the itinerary, which they'll be over here to do.
A question for both of you, I think, and you briefly mentioned it earlier, Carmel. There are competitive elements here too. One council competing against another council, one festival or one celebration competing against another. How do you, I'm not saying park that because you need that competitive element to give you that sharp edge, but how can you take advantage collectively, given the times are tough in regard to budgets? How can they work together but still have that competitive edge and that difference?
And I think it's probably something that Stephen will touch on whenever he talks about brand. I suppose we can all work together. Those events that will stand out will be those that are underpinned, by a brand and a really, really strong proposition. I think what we can do, we know from research, that our events are a driver of not only overnight stays, but day trips. And I think, the wider industry can work together. There'll be, and we see this, there are certain months of the year where there are lots of events happening throughout Northern Ireland. And how we go about that is that we tie all of that into an overall visitor message in terms of, yes, look, it's October, there's, lots happening right across Northern Ireland, but actually there's lots of restaurants, there's lots of accommodation, there's lots of other things to see and do. So I think it's about packaging it up into a real compelling visitor itinerary that creates that maximum opportunity to convert the visitor to come and consider an overnight stay. What we are also doing and what we are working on at the minute, I mentioned tourismni.com and the dedicated section that's there in terms of events and those 641,000 visits from last year. We are actually enhancing that more in terms of creating almost like a what's on guide for Northern Northern Ireland. So a one-stop destination for people to find out, okay, if I'm thinking about visiting Northern Ireland, what actually will there be to do when I'm there? I understand that there'll be accommodation and restaurants and attractions, but sometimes the event can be that final hook that helps us create that conversion. So what we are doing is we're working hard in the background to enhance that section of our website even more, and we'll be using that, I suppose, as a jumping off point for lots of our promotion across all of those things that I talked about earlier, everything from our campaigns to that programme of always on activity. So in that sense, the breadth and the competition is no bad thing, because we almost need to leave it then, we need to present that information to the visitor, but then leave it to the visitor to make up their mind in terms of what event that they are going to choose. Maybe events, hopefully, would be the ideal scenario.
Which means that one-stop shop as such is very inclusive and would include maybe something small that's happening in the Enniskillen Museum, but could be connected to something else, either that geographical area or across Northern Ireland.
And I think that's important, because again, back to the segments, what we see from our social Instagrammers, they are the ones who are probably, it's a music festival, which is right up there. But whenever you look at some of those other segments, it's probably the more niche community events that actually will help to convert that audience. And I think it's no bad thing that, all of those events are there for the visitor in one central place to allow them to make up their mind in terms of what they want from a visit to Northern Ireland.
A question over at the far table there. Thank you. If you could stand up, the microphone will come to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, George and Carmel. Carmel, I really like the way you're talking about what's on. As a tour operator who's also organising events around golf, the tourists coming in, they have their own holidays, so they decide when they're coming. And as a tour operator, it's very difficult to see what's on in a region at that time. So what you're describing is perfect to what we need.
Great. And what you find is where we, at the minute, with discovernorthernireland.com, a lot of that information is actually pulled from the council websites, but we have identified gaps. The gaps are mainly in around entertainment, live music, music events, theatre. So there are gaps out there, and we're looking to understand where we can pull that information from. So again, if more than happy to talk to anyone in the breaks, we think we do have a solution in place which will literally farm and pull that information. But if there's any other gaps that you think that, whenever you're planning itineraries or you're planning trips, that you feel that there's a gap there, please feel free to come and have a chat.
So what's your time frame for this?
So we're currently, we've been working on it over the last couple of months, and we're hoping to get it live into April and May of next year. April and May this year.
Oh, this year. Oh, good. Because when I ask our guests coming into Ireland, what are you looking for? A lot of them say the real Irish experience, and then obviously drilling down to that, they're looking at culture, music. So if I can go on and look at what's around that area at the time, I've even had some, they want to go to a GAA match. So lots of that's what they're looking for, and particularly when they're here for golf, to fit it around where they are in a region at that time would be really useful to know what's on.
No problem. And just to say that at the minute, as part of the filtering system that already exists, you can filter by music, sport, food and drink. So there is that facility already there. We launched a new version of Discover Northern Ireland in February. So again, one of the reasons for that was to improve the user journey and to make things, the searchability as well for the visitor. So that has been improved just as part of that relaunch.
And is that on dates as well?
It is,
okay,
yes, exactly. Whenever
you
you go now, you can see actually month by month, and it highlights some events across each of the core months, and then all the other events then are listed below.
George, have you found that with the tour operators as well? They're looking for the wider experience. You mentioned experiences in regard to that attraction to come to Northern Ireland, but not just one thing, but a whole group of experiences.
Yeah, it'll vary between tour operators. So if you've got, one side to look at it, if you've got a really niche type of tour operator, be it sports or cultural events, they will be looking for events right across Northern Ireland, not necessarily just in the urban centres. But people are looking to come, a Northern Irish trip or an Irish trip will be a bucket list experience, be it golf or otherwise. They'll want to be doing something else part of the itinerary, and particularly something that surprises them, something that they didn't know was necessarily on, and events is a great opportunity for that.
Any other questions from the floor? Here, the lady here. Over here, Paul, we'll take you. And then the lady first here with the blue top as well. If you could bring that microphone over. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Paul Murray. I operate and run an outdoor company called Wild Walk Bushcraft. So I teach everything from outdoor skills, bushcraft skills, foraging skills, right through to our ancient ancestors and how we lived and made tools. One of the things I find each year, I go to meet the buyer, fam trips. How would I get involved with them? Something I struggle with the social media stuff. I'm a one-man band. I'm outside all the time, so I can't be behind the computer putting things together. If you come to me and you come to one of my trips or one of my workshops, you will want to come to it. But if you look at it in paper, it doesn't sell the same, if you understand where I'm coming from. So I see people getting fam trips each year. You know, my friend Mark Rogers gets quite a few fam trips, these types of things. But they all seem to be among the same operators each time. How would I get onto that list that I could actually get a chance to slot in, bring people out on a farm trip, and let them experience something that I do that then they can then take forward and be able to sell by going, I've been there, I've seen it, I've done it, and it's amazing. How would we do that?
So the business solutions team will be the team to engage with. So to touch on fam trips, we run a number of fam trips across all different segments. So it'll be media fams where we'll bring in journalists or influencer fams that'll come and portray the destination. We'll then have tour operator-based fams. So we do that within every different segment. So be it golf, travel trade, business events, we'll have designated fam trips. They can be a little complicated in that it'll be Tourism Ireland's job to bring the overseas buyers in. So there is a bit of a dictatorship in terms of what the tour operators are wanting to see and experience when they're here. But that being said, we do have the opportunity to then broaden the itinerary, and we wanted to try bring new operators in for the first time. So liaise with us on the business solutions team. In terms of how we plan the itineraries, it'll be, we have a FAM framework to follow in terms of value for money and making sure that we be responsible with our spend. But then we also have to meet the requirements of the tour operators when they come in. But we'll be able to make something work for you. Come speak to us and we'll be able to let you know the itinerary for the year. And then we're always looking for new experiences to enhance what tour operators that have been here before are looking for something new, or new tour operators are looking for something a bit different.
Great to make that connection with George later. Your question, that'll be the last one before the coffee break. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that on, yeah?
Yes, yeah. Stand up if you can,
yeah.
please. Thank you.
My name's Judy Hutton. I represent Voco Belfast Hotel. So I'm speaking really from the hotel's perspective, and it's just to see a couple of things that were coming out in this. I know that, and probably an awful lot of hotels have a representative, probably very much like me, where we go out and we sell hotel rooms, but we sell much more than the hotel room. We do sell the events and the overall experience. So to have that more and more collaboration between events that are going on, I know that I want to educate myself much more on the smaller events right the way through to the larger, so that we sell for you and way beyond just a hotel room is one point. I'm really interested in the What's On guide as well, and I immediately think if we could get a QR code and get them into hotel rooms as well, that would be a really big benefit. So those are just two very quick points from the hotels and accommodations perspective.
Thank you very much. I can remember years ago the old Time Out magazine. If you went to London, you got the Time Out magazine. And not on paper, but we'll have our Northern Ireland very own Time Out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to George and to Carmel. They'll be around all day for your questions. Remember, we'll have the pods as well opened up for all of our colleagues in Tourism Northern Ireland. We will have a coffee break now. We'll restart at 11:15. Thank you.